This video is brought to you by Paragon, my own original sci-fi novel coming February this year. Fandoms sure are weird, aren't they? From an outside perspective, the groups of people most dedicated to loving and adoring their favourite pieces of fiction seemingly do nothing else other than shit on said piece of fiction and each other. This happens in Star Wars, Rick and Morty, and of course my own lady loves Star Trek. Since the launch of the Kelvin timeline and more recent Star Trek Discovery, Facebook groups and YouTube comment sections seem awash with nothing but the most screeching kind of toxic fanboy flame wars. But I'm not here to talk about that right now. Fellow Trekkies or Trekkers or whatever you want to call yourselves, lifelong obsessives or younger newcomers, even people who enjoy the Enterprise theme song. For the runtime of this video, let's tone things down a bit. Let's come together, put our differences aside, sit down, and discuss something which we can all agree on. Released in 1999, Galaxy Quest is the best Star Trek movie ever made, which isn't really a Star Trek movie. If you're unfamiliar, Galaxy Quest is built on the inspired premise of the cast of a cult 80s sci-fi show being abducted by aliens who have mistaken their TV transmissions as actual historical documents, and have subsequently modelled their entire society to resemble it. Thus, the hapless crew who hold a decade-old resentment for the show itself soon find themselves thrown into an actual outer space adventure where they have to battle an actual alien bad guy, and it is brilliant. We'll go into the ins and outs of the metatextual narrative a little later, but first off it's worth going into some detail as to why Galaxy Quest is already a great movie on its own terms. For a movie with an ensemble cast and less than 2 hours of runtime, the screenplay for Galaxy Quest is one of the most efficient and well constructed I have ever personally read. The opening convention sequence tells you virtually everything you need to know about our main characters, sets up all the main arcs, and kicks off all the main plot threads, while also still cramming in a ton of witty jokes and quips. The cast is so full of charisma, wit, and sheer acting talent, it's almost as if each of them is constantly trying to steal the entire movie from each other. Tim Allen's overconfident, fame-hogging Jason Nesmith is the perfect foil for everyone else to bounce off, doing everything he can to relive the glory days. Sigourney Weaver is perfectly cast as a great actress stuck in an unforgiving role, considering she basically built her career from a character who starts as just some other crew member, making it to the end for being smarter and more resourceful than anyone else. The late great Alan Rickman is phenomenal as Alexander Dane, the British thespian who finds himself repeating an inane catchphrase and forced to wear a ridiculous prosthetic headpiece. Tony Shalhoub is hilarious from his first appearance as an obviously not Asian actor, made famous for playing an Asian character, and plays much of the movie with the pretext that he is permanently stoned. Daryl Mitchell is also highly underrated in my opinion, almost by happenstance as an actor playing a character who is no doubt nobody's favourite among the fictional fandom, and yet some of the best jokes in the movie belong to him, and Mitchell delivers them perfectly. But among an entire cast of scene stealers, Sam Rockwell is hands down the king. The entire movie is worth watching just to focus on all the work Rockwell is doing in each scene. And of course he's given what is likely the best running gag in the entire movie, but we'll get to that later on. I haven't even mentioned the supporting cast yet, but the main ensemble is simply incredible. The chemistry between them all leaps off the screen. In fact, while Galaxy Quest obviously owes a lot to Star Trek, when it comes to the characters, it actually outdoes a lot of Star Trek movies. Aside from entries like Star Trek Beyond, huge swaths of the main cast are relegated to the background in most Trek movies, but here Galaxy Quest really capitalizes on its assets. The characters all have a collective arc, but it's expressed differently for each of them. Nesmith goes from hogging the limelight to bringing the entire cast forward for a final bow as equals. Dane ends up sincerely speaking his catchphrase to another person, and Alan Rickman's delivery of what has been up until this point a joke is beautiful. Fred Kwan finds love, Laredo learns to drive, and Guy finds his place on the crew. Even the Thermians grow as a people, and Justin Long, in one of the few roles where he isn't insufferable, gets a chance to use his nerdy knowledge for something important. The character writing for this movie and the construction of the story in general is the telltale sign of a script which has been fine-tuned into the best form it could possibly be, and from that foundation the movie goes the extra mile. With such a great script it would be easy to leave it at that, but the filmmaking team behind Galaxy Quest also gave the film a veneer of excellent cinematography, ILM creating spectacular visual effects, and David Newman composing an absolutely stunning music score. Having rewatched the movie again for this video, Newman's compositions simply blew me away. An instantly iconic main theme, emotional action, and atmospheric cues full of layered musical colours. The cast are there to propel the dialogue and jokes, while the music is there to propel everything else. Because the creative team behind Galaxy Quest weren't just content to give us a great spoof of a sci-fi action adventure, they went to the effort of making a true big screen space adventure at the same time. Something else which I have no flowery segue for, this movie's just fucking funny. I would be silly to sit here and break down all the best jokes because you might as well just watch them, so instead I'm just going to name a bunch of things which always makes me personally chuckle. The way Alan Rickman delivers this line.
Will you possibly try not to hit every single one?
Guy making his own echo effect on the microphone when he introduces Nesmith. The way the Thermians do everything. How Dane never removed his prosthetics throughout the entire film. The image of what looked like Nausicaans using a urinal. Tommy's expression while flying the shuttle. Gwen's martial arts moves. Sam Rockwell's expression in this shot. Kwan's group hug with the engineers. When Mathazar makes this noise.
Limo at my house.
I could literally go on all day. I also have no flowery segue for this bit, so let's talk about the nitty-gritty of this movie's love for Star Trek. Galaxy Quest is the kind of parody only fans of Star Trek could make, because it's a loving parody. A spoof which is able to poke fun at all the little idiosyncrasies of Star Trek as a franchise, while also clearly having a blast doing the fun stuff. We all know that despite being a progressive, socially aware show on paper, the original series of Trek did slip up in a few places. We all know that the production values weren't the best. We all know the strange costumes and aliens look kinda silly sometimes. We also know the plot armor surrounding our main characters and the sealed fate of any first name only redshirts, which allows the film to deliver its best running gag in the form of Sam Rockwell.
You have a last name.
Do I? Do I?
Yes!
For all you know, I'm just crewman number 6! Baby! Baby!
And the Oscar goes to Sam Rockwell.
This movie is so jam-packed with callbacks, in-jokes and references, I'm just gonna do a super fast trivia round off the top of my head, so here we go. Nesmith overhearing the attendees in the bathroom describing how everyone hates him is based on a real incident which happened to William Shatner. Dane turning the scanning device around is a reference to how Leonard Nimoy used to hold his tricorder the wrong way around. Dane's catchphrase is also a reference to Live Long and Prosper. Gwen being sexualized by the media is a reference to the same thing happening to Jerry Ryan, in which a magazine article really did spend several paragraphs talking about how her boobs fit in a costume. Dane being a well-regarded Shakespeare actor is a reference to Patrick Stewart's career before TNG. Guy suggesting that Nesmith constructs some kind of rudimentary weapon to fight the rock monster is a reference to the episode Arena where Kirk fights the Gorn. The NTE in the Protector's ship registration number stands for Not the Enterprise. The Protector itself is a silhouette similar to the badges in the Next Generation. And the Raider's presence as a child prodigy who can fly the ship is a reference to Wesley Crusher!
Splendid. Splendid. Carry on.
But it's in the thematic element of the film that Galaxy Quest shows its true love for Star Trek as a franchise. The collective arc for the cast is essentially realizing how they're part of something bigger than themselves. At the beginning they're all concerned with their careers, wanting to move on from the show or stay in its limelight, but by the end they're able to see that shows like Galaxy Quest mean more than that, especially to the fans. Galaxy Quest hits the bullseye so accurately it's even a well-regarded movie among the Star Trek cast themselves. Galaxy Quest is a rip-roaring, laugh-a-minute space adventure comedy with a tight script, delightful humour, charm to spare, and tons of fun thrills to enjoy. A genius concept for a story inhabited by layered characters played to perfection by a cast of greats. A true love letter to fans of the genre which is able to simultaneously poke fun at what it loves, while also exhibiting exactly why the material it's parodying is worth loving. And that is why Galaxy Quest is awesome. Matt's Movie Reviews asks, tell us more about you and what inspired you to start creating on YouTube. Not really a question, but here goes anyway. This is me. I was born here, educated here, here, and here. I'm a Scottish dude with a weird accent which makes no regional sense, and I got into YouTube really as an outlet for my filmmaking ambitions. It took a while for me to refine what I wanted to make videos about. If you go back to my old stuff, you'll find some pretty embarrassing things. Making YouTube videos is basically one of these several outlets for me to do what I love. I come from a really small village, and basically everyone got fed up of me talking about Star Trek, so I started making videos about it instead. I hope that info was useful as a response in some way. If you like my videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on all my new uploads. Over on my Patreon, you can see videos early for as little as $5 a month. Speaking of such, I'd like to thank my patrons Andy Luke, Chris Lord, James Vanderhaeg, L. Carton, Larry Bennett, T. Stoney, and Melly Coleman. Until next time, have a good one, and by Grapthar's hammer, live long and prosper.